Okay, so a bit of an update on this. I now have quite a bit more progress on it. I have a bunch of functions built in. I will give a quick demonstration and then walk through what each of these does. So to demonstrate, you just want to run the scene and get your timecode. I have two different clips of timecode. One is for this video, the other is for this video. So I can start the clip at any point in here, and it will jump to that section, keep it synchronized with the timecode, and you can go to any part and continue to play, and Resolume will keep it synchronized. The cool part is even if you get to the end of this timecode, if a different section of timecode starts, it will jump to that part and play that timecode. So it doesn't really care about which timecode you start playing. It will just switch it when it can. And there's actually quite a bit of complexity to do with this. Also, if I stop, you'll see timecode loss, and it ejects the clip, so it goes back to the default loop. So that's good. So I'm going to break it down to the different functionality. Basically, the detecting timecode and being able to trigger the clip, the stop timecode, where it stops, it sends the eject clip, and then the being able to transition from one timecode to another, or one clip to a different clip at any point in time. So here is the whole blueprint. Up at the top, I got to do a bunch of extra stuff, like at the beginning of play, this fires once whenever you hit play here. I'm creating an OSC server and client, and then setting these variables. And then in addition to that, I'm also I'm creating a custom event and binding it to on OSC message received. There's a custom named event, and so every time a OSC message is received, I get the address and convert it to a string, and then I do two different things. I specifically get the substring length of 27, which is these two strings right here. These are the two that I'm looking for. There is clear, which this is the ejecting of the clip, and then there is the composition layer clip. And it's specifically for anything that's on layer 3. The whole string, if I go to Resolume and show OSC shortcuts, the whole string is down here. So this is composition layers 3 clips 1, and then we have 2, 3, 4, and I don't care the specific of what this is, because this part is checking to make sure that these are the incoming messages from Resolume. So I have Resolume set up so that when Unreal sends a message, Resolume sends a message back. And that is a confirmation check to make sure that Unreal knows that Resolume received the message. And then I'm just doing a bunch of printing here. So here I'm setting a couple different variables. These two are the same. So OSC confirm is simply it's basically the clear check. And that is to detect if it has ejected the clip. Right? Yeah. That could literally just be clip ejected the entire time. Anyway, and then I'm also setting the specific, but instead of it being this length, it's a length of 30. And the reason being is because in the case of the secondary check, I do want to know what clip it is so that I can check it versus another one to see if it's the same or see if it's different. And I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so that's all this stuff. So this fires once at the beginning. This fires every time a message is received, but I get it filtered out based on what things are being sent. I only care about these two, is clear and clips. All right, so then on our event tick, I am first reading the timecode twice. So every fifth of a second, I'm reading the timecode, and then a fifth of a second later, I read the timecode again. And these two variables are what allow me to do my timecode stop check. So then over here is the timecode stop check. I'm basically taking these two time codes that are strings now, converting them into names, because apparently it's easier to compare two names than it is two strings. And then I'm just simply doing a check to see whether these two are the same. So if the time code is running every 1/5 of a second, these should be different, because it's setting a time code, waiting a 1/5 of a second, then setting the different time code. So if these are different, that means time code is running, in theory. So I'm doing a check there, and then if the time code is running, basically, it fires this stuff down here. And if the time code isn't running, it sends this print screen, or print string, and then it does a secondary check, which, right, so this specific check is to make sure, right, okay, so this is checking to see if the last message received from OSC, not OSC, from Resolume, was clear or clips. If the last message it received was clips, it ejects the clip. If it was clear, it doesn't do anything. And then down here, we're again printing some data that I can read, and we're doing the same check, but the inverse. So here, if the last message that Unreal receives is clear, it will fire this every time. So that is basically if you stop playing timecode. So if timecode's playing and you stop it, the last message Unreal received is eject clip clear. So no matter what, if it receives a timecode after that, it will automatically seek out which clip that is and trigger it. And these are just some custom functions I made. There's not a whole lot going on here. Okay, so then the other one is if the last message it sends was clips. So this is all to prevent, right, so this here and this here are to prevent Unreal from spamming the OSC messages to Resolume. If that happens, Resolume flickers, and it doesn't play back smoothly, so we don't want that. So what I'm doing now is then checking my two OSC checks, and what those are is as follows. I go over here. So the third thing I'm doing, so the first one is doing the timecode check. Here is running the timecode check and then seeing if timecode is running or not. And I used to have this plugged in here, but it was messy, so I kind of broke it up and did something. I'll probably make this its own function at some point. Anyway, the third thing I'm doing is reading data from the data table. So the data table right here, this is the type I have. It's essentially a spreadsheet. So this is the struct class that I created. And then here's the actual data table. So where we have the row name itself is actually the time code. And so that is the lookup name that it's looking for. So all I'm having to do is take time code, convert it into a string, then convert it into a name, and then use that as a reference into the table. That's what I've done for a different project for somebody else. For this one, I'm doing things a bit different, where I made a custom function that is essentially rounding to the nearest 15-minute mark. And the reason we're doing that is so that for every hour of timecode, we can have 4 different timecode slots, because every track that Wrestling the Crutchers plays is under 15 minutes, and if we have one that's over 15 minutes, we just give it 2 slots. So here I have the times, the rough times of each one, and then the OSC address. So I have the song names, song duration, OSC address. This is the specific address that Resolume wants to trigger each clip, so that each one of these columns is going to be its own video, synchronized video for visuals. And then here I have the actual address, and the nice thing is it's just the next number, so I can just set up a spreadsheet to do that. Okay, back to Unreal. I don't care about that. Anyway, so yeah, so each of the OSC addresses, and then extra notes I had notes is just extra data that I can use. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was just what this number is. That doesn't really matter. Data, again, this was the data I was going to send to the address, but it's always a 1 or a 0, so I don't worry about that. Okay, so that's the data table. So then I am, because each of my sections is a chunk of 15 minutes, all I'm doing is taking the time code and rounding it to the nearest 15 by essentially taking the minutes, dividing it by 15, multiplying by 15. Because it's an integer, it's whole numbers only. There's no 0.5 whatever, so that gives me a nice rounded number of to the nearest 15. Oh yeah, and then of course I don't need seconds, I don't need frames. So this is essentially taking the time code and just telling me what slot I'm in. And that doesn't really matter after that. Okay, so take the time code, tell me what slot I'm in, take that, turn it into a string, turn it into a name, and then I'm using that to pick which row I'm reading data from, and then I break out that data. Really, the only data I need is OSC address. That is then turned in, oh, right, I'm getting a substring of length of 30, because up here I have the same substring of 30, so that I can do my OSC check to see if the last message I sent is the same as the one I'm trying to send next time. So this basically saves the last message I sent to trigger a clip, and then it converts it, does a bunch of conversions to it, and sets it right. It sets the OSC address. So then this guy here, this function, this is taking that OSC address and sending it. So basically the OSC address updates every frame. I could put a lay on it. It doesn't particularly matter. I kind of like it being this snappy because it updates faster. So yeah, then I just have an OSC message object here. It's sending a single integer of 1 in the message to this address, to this client. The client is specified up here. So here's where you specify the IP address. I literally just put in the IP address, the local IP address of the computer. I tried zeros. I tried 172.0.0 dot whatever. That didn't work, so I actually had to specify. And I think that's because in Resolume, it actually wants you to give the specific address. So that is the IP address, local IP address of the machine. And because it's running all on the same machine, it doesn't actually matter if I'm connected to a network or not. But in theory, these could run on 2 different machines. I have one computer that's just doing the queuing, running the Unreal scene, and then a different computer that's running the visuals. It's possible. I don't necessarily need to do that. Okay, so then there's a lot here. I've spent a lot of time on this, better part of today. Actually, you know what? I've been working on this for at least 10 hours today. Holy shit. Okay, so then right, so then I'm doing my timecode check, see if timecode's running. If timecode's running, we send this data, and then we do this check, and this is to see if the last message I received was clear or clips. If it was clear, send the data. If it was clips, I am comparing the 2 different OSC checks that I have. And you'll remember, I'm setting OSC check 2 here every time. This is being set every frame. And OSC 1 gets set every time we receive a message, but only if it's a clip message, because I don't care if it's clear. If it's clear, it's going to fire anyway. So every time I receive a clips message, it's taking the 30 character string and saving that as OSC check 1. And every time we read the data table, it's having a 30 character string and setting OSC check 2. So then here it's doing that comparison between check 1 and check 2, seeing if they're the same. If they are the same, we don't do anything. If they're the same, that means we don't want to send the same message. Resolume already knows. If they're not the same, that means we're playing a time code of a different slot or something else. It's not the same message, so we send that message, and then everything else takes back over. And yeah. a lot of the pain was me just not knowing what the heck I'm doing and figuring out how to do it properly. So I'll give you one more demo real quick. Essentially, you just run the scene, you give it timecode, you have Resolume open over here. And once again, we just have our timecode. You can start anywhere in the clip. It'll pick it up wherever it is, 19, 20 seconds in. You can stop it, and it will eject the clip within like half a second. You can play a different clip. It'll go. It's not stuttering or anything. If you stop it, again, ejects the clip. But then you can also continuously play a clip of timecode and then immediately jump to a different timecode, and it will update and send to the next one. Those were the 3 key features I wanted in this. You'll notice it does stutter every once in a while, so I want to get this project stripped down and built into a standalone program. There's no 3D anything. It's purely just a user interface. Yeah, and make myself a little utility widget. Holy moly. I'm getting excited though, because this means we'll be able to trigger visuals and keep everything in time. So it's going to be super cool.